The Republicans trying to reach out to Latinos, and Jason Richwine is working for the Heritage Foundation. That's mainly the largest conservative think tank there is. He used to work for the American Enterprise Institute.
And his name is Richwine.
I know, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Unbelievable.
Right. Now, American Enterprise Institute, maybe even more conservative, it's the neocon think tank. So he hit them both. He's a relatively young guy. They partly hired him because of his brilliant thesis at Harvard called IQ and Immigration Policy. So let's see how this reaches out to both immigrants and Latinos. Well, Jason explains the statistical construct known as IQ can reliably estimate general mental ability or intelligence. Okay, I don't know if I believe that, but that's what he says. The average IQ of immigrants in the United States is substantially lower than that of the white native population, and the difference is likely to persist over several generations. The consequences are a lack of socioeconomic assimilation among low IQ immigrant groups, more underclass behavior, less social trust, and an increase in the proportion of unskilled workers in the American labor market. Already, this is devastating on about 17 different counts, like the native white population. Wait a minute, if you're comparing immigrants to the Americans that are already here, why not look at the whole population and compare?
Yeah.
Perhaps you want to make a racial point? I couldn't quite tell. And then later referring to the to immigrants as the underclass, and low skilled, etc. We're beginning to see some of his hideous assumptions, but you think, well, how much worse than that can it get? Hold. Okay. He says the totality of the evidence suggests a genetic component to group differences in IQ. In other words, us whites are so much smarter than the rest of you. Okay, now by this logic, you could, if you believed it, which you absolutely shouldn't, and we'll get into that in a second.
By the way, it's we whites, not us whites.
Yeah, see, you know, low IQ immigrant.
Yeah, I was going to say immigrant. Right. I was getting to that, yes.
But don't worry, it's genetics.
Well, we're going to get to that too. So, so by that logic, of course, you can kick out Latinos that are already in the U.S. If you believe this, you can, maybe he didn't get into blacks, but I fear to ask what he would say. We could also kick out white people who have lower IQ than Asians, and then we just give it back to the people who crossed the Bering Strait in the first place, right? Makes sense? That's the native population, right?
Exactly right.
All right, so he continues, because if you weren't, this wasn't clear enough. He's hit immigrants and genetic. Just spit it out already, Jason, and he does. No one knows whether Hispanics will ever reach IQ parity with whites, but the prediction that new Hispanic immigrants will have low IQ children and grandchildren is difficult to argue against. Oh,
so not
devastating!
It's basically saying it's never going to get better. Nobody dumb will ever even give offspring to smart people.
Yeah, that's one component of it, but the even more odious part of it is, no, Latinos are forever dumb. I'm already telling you, Latinos are dumb, and they never have any hope their kids are going to be dumb. They're great. I mean, if you asked me to come up with something insulting to Latinos, I couldn't have done anything like this. I wouldn't have thought to insult their grandkids. I mean, that's imaginative. These are the guys trying to reach out to Latinos.
That's it forever. These are dumb people. We shouldn't let them in, is what he's saying. And they always will be. It's the most hideous form of communication. Heritage is distancing itself from this report, which comes from the Heritage Foundation.
It's a very high IQ.
In a statement, Heritage Foundation spokesman Mike Gonzalez said that Richwine's dissertation does not reflect the values of the think tank. We all know what the values of that think tank are, which is working to defeat key parts of the compromise. You'll notice Heritage Foundation spokesman Mike Gonzalez. It's like, wait a second. How did this happen? This is not a work product of the Heritage Foundation. So they're saying, nor do these findings affect the conclusion of our study on the cost of amnesty to the U.S. taxpayer. Senator Marco Rubio, he of the Gang of Eight guys, he has said that he lambasted this report as flawed. It's not his experience, etc. So you're finding pushback, but only from Latino voices within Heritage and the Republican Party, none from the rest. And Mike Lee's not stepping up and saying this Heritage Foundation thing, terrible.
Right, now one more important note on that is that Jason explains in his paper how you deal with that, because he knows that it sounds really bad and cause political trouble. And he says using the term skill-based would blunt the negative reaction. And if you look at the Heritage Foundation publications, they are constantly referring to low-skilled workers and high-skilled workers. That's their code word for those are the idiot Hispanics that we don't want to let into the country.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's as bad as it can get.
There are 2 points I want to make on this. One, I love that we now have this dissertation to look at, especially coming just a week or two after some of the bills that Lamar Smith has been pushing in the House to totally dismantle the scientific method and its interaction with government funding. So he doesn't want there to be peer review. Or if there is peer review, he wants to make sure that politicians then look at it. Here is exactly why we need politicians not analyzing the validity of data, and also we need peer review, is because shit like this can be produced. So I was in social science. I was working on a dissertation, actually. And one of the first things you learn is the quality of the research is in very large part dependent on the quality of the measures that you use. If the measures are complete crap, then the conclusions are going to be crap too. And the IQ has traditionally, and especially among minorities, been shown to be a bad measure of actual intelligence. He tries to sweep that under the rug with one sentence, but you can't, because there are other dissertations written about how bad it is. But more importantly, I was reading, I think on Salon, they were giving an explanation for why conservatives love these race-based explanations of intelligence. And they summarized it, and I totally agree that it has to be a genetic thing that causes these races to do worse economically and in terms of jobs. Because if it's anything other than genetics, then social spending and social programs can have an effect. And they don't want to spend to improve the quality of life of these groups. So it's a natural thing. You can spend all the money you want, it's going to be wasted because their brains aren't made.
So is it genetics that makes these people such morons and such haters too? It's got to be genetics.
I don't know.
There,
Right. No, and so those are two great points, because basically Jason is saying it. Look, if you spend the money, it's hopeless. Their kids are hopeless, their grandkids are hopeless, etc. And Michael, to your point, you want to talk about low IQ? Okay, you're going to put this report out in public while you're trying to get Latino voters?
That's what I'm saying. How fucking dumb can these people be?
As we are recording this show, we got breaking news. Jason Richwine from the Heritage Foundation, who came up with that genius low IQ study for the Heritage Foundation, gone! Announces resignation on Friday. Yeah. Okay. What I love about this is the Heritage Foundation said, those are not the views of the foundation. We had nothing to do with this. But he wrote it in his dissertation at Harvard. Then you hired him.
Like in 2009.
Right, and that was his main thing. That was his, signature.
Right.
It's his dissertation.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, that's what made you think, we want this guy.
Right. That's why you hired him in the first place. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, we didn't know that. Oh, those are not our views, golly gee.
You need an account to log into JSTOR to read that stuff. We're not paying the $30 a month.
And so Jason apparently will be going home to take care of his family.
Right. Or to be a footman for Senator Lee.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction, actually. I think within a month he might very well be Fox News' newest contributor, basically.
Yeah,
right.
True.
And once they get in trouble, they'll be like, oh, golly gee, we did not know the dissertation that he had written.
Right. Yeah. Candidate for the 3rd District in Nevada.
That's a good point, too.
Who on earth would support such a dummy? And why?
That is awesome.
If only Jason had known that.
The storm is coming.
Yeah.